Well, hello everybody out there in internet land. This is Chris from HHNlegacy.com with another exciting episode of Topher's Life. We're back inside the HHN Legacy Studios, as it were, for another Halloween Horror Nights centric episode. A couple little house cleaning issues before we get started for today with today's topic. You might have noticed that the Horror Nights stuff might be a little bit slower again this year. I made mention in a past episode that past 7 years or so I've been trying to write a novel. And the pandemic and not having a whole lot to do during the pandemic gave me a lot more time to sort of work on it. I'm sort of using some of the weekends that I have as some of my downtime and or working on the novel to try to get it finished, so I apologize if the Horror Nights stuff isn't coming fast and furious. But you know, once things start getting announced and, you know, so on and so forth, then we'll have a little bit more stuff to talk about. But for the time being, we're gonna stick to some of the more you know, history-driven stuff. We started last year with Horror Nights being in its 30th anniversary year, that we were gonna do some deep dives and you know, talk about the history of the event and stuff that we like and we love and we don't love and so on and so forth. So we're gonna stick to that format for a little bit until they start announcing things for the event this year. So just so you know, if things are a little bit slow, I apologize. The in-park stuff probably still be every week, depending on if I, you know, if I feel like doing a video or not. So you can still count on those. Go watch those. I have fun making those. So if you want to watch those, you can. Those are available right here on this channel. Let's get into today's topic. If you haven't already read the title of the video, last year and you know, in the past, we've done videos where we go back and we sort of look at things that could have happened at Halloween Horror Nights that were abandoned or canceled because of various reasons. Last year we did something called What Could Have Been Scream at Halloween Horror Nights 2015. You can go back and watch that video, as it were. We're going to talk about another house that was supposed to come to the event. Has since come to the event twice. But I think Scream is probably the most infamous of the houses that were coming to the event, that were canceled for various reasons or whatever. You know, but there are others, and we're going to talk about one of those today. So for today's house, you know, I don't think it's any secret that An American Werewolf in London is one of my all-time favorite houses at Halloween Horror Nights, period. I think that house is, or was, genius. I think that we're still sort of feeling the innovation effects from American Werewolf in London, especially when it comes to the puppets. So it's you know, it was an influential house. But what if I told you that American Werewolf in London was supposed to come to Halloween Horror Nights at least twice before? I'm sure there were other times that they tried to get the property to come to the events, with Mike Aiello being such a huge fan of the property. But there were 2 years where American Werewolf in London came very close to being featured at the event. We're going to start with the first year, and that is the year 2008, Halloween Horror Nights 18, Reflections of Fear, featuring Bloody Mary. So the property was supposed to come to the event that year. I'm not super sure at how far along the planning stages was for this specific year, but I do know that it was supposed to be featured and was taken away. One of the things that I had heard as to why they had taken it away was because they wanted to feature more of this sort of elaborate backstory for Bloody Mary and you know, have everything sort of tie in, you know, basically tie in together. And I don't think they could figure out how to fit An American Werewolf in London within that sort of context of Bloody Mary. Now, if you did go to Halloween Horror Nights in 2008, Halloween Horror Nights 18, Reflections of Fear, you may notice some similarities in one specific house. And that specific house that we are talking about is, of course, Creatures. Now, Creatures was a house that was sort of inspired by like 1950s sort of sci-fi. You know, it follows, you know, this comic book series within the context of the storyline that's following Bloody Mary. You know, and if you went through the first room of this house, the first room was a bar, and the bar has a very similar name to the bar featured in American Werewolf in London. The bar in American Werewolf in London is called the Slaughtered Lamb. and the bar featured in Creatures is called the Butchered Buck. One thing that I also want to make mention of is that, and I've said this in the past, especially when trying to compile like my best of lists and stuff like that, or my favorites list, sometimes these houses meld together, and you sort of, you don't remember if one thing is from the same thing, or if something if you're misremembering something or whatever. I don't recall if the Butchered Buck was the same layout as the bar that was eventually featured in An American Werewolf in London, Slaughtered Lamb. I cannot remember. So all I know is that the house, the bar in the house, with an obvious nod to the Slaughtered Lamb with the Butchered Buck, was featured in the first room in that house. So that's literally how you start the house. Of course, the Slaughtered Lamb in the movie American Werewolf in London, it's where David and Jack go to the pub and they meet all the weird sort of patrons there. You got the guy with the dart, you made me miss, and after Jack asks about the pentagram on the wall, so very, very influential in the movie American Werewolf in London, and the Butchered Buck obviously a takeoff of that. But like I said, I'm not exactly how far An American Werewolf in London got in 2008 to actually becoming a thing. I'm still unclear of. I've heard many different things. I've heard the fact that it did get far, but they wanted, like I said earlier, they wanted to make stuff tie more into Bloody Mary, and they couldn't figure it out, and they decided to put it in their back pocket for a later date, which is totally understandable because a lot of fans, of course, regard 2008 as one of the most detailed, interconnected years that we've ever had in Halloween Horror Nights. So it is what it is. But yeah, so 2008, first year that American Werewolf in London came very close to coming to Halloween Horror Nights. The second year that we're going to jump into at this point is in the grand old year of 2012, Halloween Horror Nights 22, and American Werewolf in London was once again on the list to bring to Halloween Horror Nights. Now in this case, the house got very far. The house in terms of the planning stages got so far to the point where they literally were building the house. So they had the house was being constructed and the layout was there, and so on and so forth. And then depending on who you talk to, the powers that be decided to pull the plug because they wanted to bring in something new, something fresh, and that was Halloween Horror Nights' first use of a video game property, Silent Hill. Now, Silent Hill, of course, kind of a mixed bag, in terms of who you talk to. I didn't hate Silent Hill like I guess some people sort of hated. I think that there is a little bit of a contingency of the diehard fans who, when they walk through Silent Hill, know that that was supposed to be an American Werewolf in London. And if you did, in fact, walk through Silent Hill in the year 2012, you were walking through the ghost of An American Werewolf in London, because the layout that they had for Silent Hill was literally the layout that they had built for An American Werewolf in London. So now again, in terms of the house, I don't exactly recall if there was any kind of references to An American Werewolf in London in Silent Hill, knowing how close the house actually came to being. I don't know about any kind of details, whether they started to physically set dress the house, but I know that the layout was literally the same layout that they had planned for An American Werewolf in London. And then they just sort of overlaid it with Silent Hill. So I don't know exactly how far past, other than just building the layout, how far they had actually gotten with putting in stuff for An American Werewolf in London. And like I said, I don't remember any kind of, where the dogs, no, the dogs were Resident Evil. I don't recall any dogs in Silent Hill. I could be wrong. I remember there were a lot of chain link fences in Silent Hill. Like I said, I like Silent Hill. I wasn't like a huge fan of Silent Hill, but it was one of those houses where you walk through like, oh, that was fine, and then you kind of like forget. It's just kind of a forgettable house. Except for the ending, I really enjoyed the last scene in that house with the giant pyramid head guy and whatnot and so forth. But anyway, Silent Hill was initially supposed to be An American Werewolf in London. Now, I'm sure that they tried in the past to bring An American Werewolf in London. Like I said, I know Mike is a huge fan of the property. Not so sure about J. Michael Roddy when he was running things before Mike came into being. But I know that Mike is a big fan of the property, so it would not surprise me if they had tried in the past, before 2008, to sort of bring the property to the event. But those are the two instances that kind of have weight to them, that we know. And of course, like, you know, I don't make these videos for just the diehard fans. I make these videos for people who may not be as well versed in the Horror Nights space as some other people are. So if you already know this stuff, that's fine. You know, it's just, you just get to hear it again. You know, hey, you know, Silent Hill was supposed to be American Werewolf in London, and it was supposed to come in 2008. But, you know, for those of you that don't know, that was the case. And American Werewolf in London, at least those two times, came very, very close to happening before, of course, it came in 2013, and then we got it again in 2015. Like I've said in the past, I love American Werewolf in London. It's one of my favorite houses. I don't so much like the house in 2015. I think an American Werewolf in London was one of those things where, you know, they captured that lightning in a bottle, and, you know, when they redid it again, that magic, that spark was not there anymore. You know, like I said, I don't know if they had the same cast members that were in 2013 or whatever. I just know that the spark, the energy that was in that first house was kind of absent from the 2015 house, and you were just kind of walking through the house again, which was fine, but again, it left it sort of bland and sort of dull, and just lack of, just not very memorable in 2015. But yeah, so we could have had American Werewolf in London before that. They've tried to bring it before, and they've gotten really close a couple times. But then, of course, after 2012, 2013, you know, we got an American Werewolf in London. I don't hate the two video game houses. I think I liked Resident Evil quite a bit. I think that there was stuff in there that was sort of experimental that, you know, some worked, some didn't work. Silent Hill, you know, I wasn't a huge fan of the game. I played a lot more Resident Evil growing up than I did Silent Hill, so I wasn't as, you know, well versed in the Silent Hill lore. I remember the movie, of course. I never saw the Revelations sequel. I hated that first film so much. I think that's one of the worst movies ever made. So I'm willing to bet the sequel isn't that much better, but it is what it is. So anyway, that's gonna do it for today's episode. So yes, American Werewolf in London almost came to us twice, or at least you know, came close enough that it was on the lineup schedule, it was in the lineup card, and then got scratched from the starting lineup very late in the game. So it is what it is. And in one case, I think it was scratched a little bit earlier in the process than it was in the second house in 2012, where they had already built the layout. But yeah, so American Werewolf in London. I would like to see an American Werewolf in London come back, you know, in some way, shape, or form. Maybe not like what we had in 2015, but maybe like their own version of a sequel. Please don't do an American Werewolf in Paris. I think that would be a mistake, but do like their own sort of version of a sequel. I think that would be kind of interesting. You know, maybe get John Landis on board to sort of, you know, create something. I would actually kind of dig that. You know, let's see where that goes. Let's see how that works out. But anyway, guys, that's going to be it for me. You know, like I said, look out for the in-park stuff. That's still going to be happening. It might not be a video next week. It depends. If I get a spark to talk about something, then I'll talk about something. I think I'm going to restart my sort of fantasy event thing again. We'll start talking a little bit about that more. We'll try to flesh out our sort of fantasy event. So look out for those. But yeah, so that's going to be it for me, guys. As usual, thanks for watching, and I will talk to you guys next time.